Chairman Lars Robert, ladies and gentlemen, a very good and warm welcome here in Hamburg and a good morning to you. Before I start, please let me thank the organizers for the kind invitation to the 7th Gas Fuel Ship Conference and the chance to speak. It is a pleasure to be here and to address a few words and thoughts on shipping and on shipping fuels and the chances and challenges that are connected to it. The conference agenda contains a number of impressive presentations, and it is my intention to make some statements on the general regulatory and economic circumstances that ship owners have to face these days. One of the major principal points which influence the operational environment for a ship operator is the regulation in the framework. Not particular news to all of you, but nevertheless it defines a great deal of investment and planning certainty for huge investments. Therefore, the way regulation is designed and implemented, in particular when it comes to the timeline, is extremely important. Having made this generally valid statement, what does it mean to the ship owners? Shipping faces a number of challenges in the policy area of environmental protection. The Ballast Water Treatment Convention will enter into force next year. The EU initiative on ship recycling requires attention, and the ship investments for higher energy efficiency of new builds and existing vessels will toughen over time, leading to greenhouse gas reductions in the future. But I will not go into the CO2 today. Also, from our view, it is one of the most important issues. A further field to address is the prevention of air pollution. The IMO's Marine Environmental Protection Committee, the MEPC, recently had its 70th session where sulfur and nitrogen emissions issues were discussed, and I will come to this back in a few moments. My point now is to raise awareness with the political decision makers that regulation and the field tightens not only in substance requirements but also time-wise. The periods of new regulations are getting shorter. Ship owners need to invest in new technologies or sometimes to retrofit ships in shorter and shorter intervals. Most German ship owners are small to medium-sized companies. In today's difficult markets, the necessary investments can be a challenge. Indeed, the current situation of maritime shipping does not exactly give us reason to be overjoyed. When the world economy and the shipping collapsed in autumn 2008, 8 years ago, actually nobody was able to foresee that we are facing a long lean period with low freight rates and low charter rates. Even being an optimistic person, I must admit, we all observed quite a change of industry compared to the previous decade. The awareness of the need of more efficient and more environmentally friendly vessels has risen in this time significantly. But back to my point. Environmental regulations and the awareness of politicians to tighten requirements have changed in the same speed. Our overall key message is here: ship operators will do its utmost to improve the environmental balance. However, careful analysis of the impacts and of the regulations is needed as a sort of general principle in order to avoid to overburden this sector. Let us look at a few concrete examples. The most imminent one is certainly sulfur. As for the Igf 0.1% sulfur content in the fuels in the North Sea and Baltic, the implementation was quite successful. The German Maritime Agency, the BSH, has confirmed a compliance rate of over 95% for vessels using the River Elbe towards Hamburg. Further, the European Commission submitted an information paper to the most recent IMO Marine Environmental Protection Committee, wherein the result of the fuel checks across Europe are presented. This paper states, by 30th of June this year, about 12,000 sulfur and fuel inspections have been conducted, and there have been more than 2,200 fuel oil samples taken, and it was extremely positive. According to them, there was only 3 to 4% above the limits. This demonstrates that ship operators have prepared properly. They do proper fuel changeovers, and they manage to avoid any safety risks for their ships and for their crews. But the next step is already in sight. 0.5% in European waters for 2020 sharp, and the IMO's debate on global sulfur cap. We as ship owners have actually for years now preferred an early decision whether to take 2020 or 2025. However, it is 2020, and there's not much time left now with the MEPC's 70 decision to implement the global sulfur cap in 2020. There is definitely much to be done until then. It is necessary to ensure that sufficient quantities are available, and they are available in the right quality. Safe and stable fuels are essentials. Alternatives will play a role, but the stocks of residuals will simply not vanish. In this connection, I'm very happy that Dr. Faber will present this morning the main outcomes of the IMO fuel availability study. Let me touch also upon another point, the air pollutant, which is very relevant and also for our conference, namely the nitrogen. You all know that the North Sea and Baltic coastal states have submitted the application for the designation of an NOx ICA for renewables from 2021. And the IMO's MEPC committee approved the designation for both sea areas accordingly in October this year. We as German ship owners have supported the NOx ICA provided that all coastal states, meaning also Russia, Poland and the Baltic states, agree to it, and that the geographical scope of it is the same as the SOx ICA area. The application so far includes these points, and this we do welcome. In general, the MARPOL Annex 6 NOx regulation as it stands is not ideal, but it is the best possible we could have, being in line with the US NOx Tier 3 area as of 2016, soon also one in Europe as of 2021, and maybe others from different years to come. These regulations are already next door. However, I like to use my chance to bring also an interesting national initiative to your attention. Interesting because this national initiative is also addressed to international shipping. The German Ministry of Environment has most recently published a so-called Climate Action Plan 2050. To explain, this action plan outlines a draft of strategies for the carbon-neutral German economy, not only shipping, until 2050, and it sets out to describe the transformation process for all these sectors. Also, the focus is clearly national. It also contains some statements for international shipping. That is why we as German ship owners follow these political developments very close. The plan states that also ocean-going shipping has to switch to carbon dioxide neutral alternative fuels. Alternative fuels in that context are electricity-based fuels like power to gas, power to hydrogen, or power to liquid. We are very happy that we can have a glance already now on the government ideas on future decades regarding shipping fuels. The one big item we are missing when reading this climate action plan is how to bridge the time from now until 2050, and we will see how it will come out with the necessary volumes of synthetic fuels to be necessary for that time. That brings me to my next point, our short-term options. A number of interesting fuel qualities with low flash points are under research, in testing, or in use. First to name, of course, is definitely the LNG, the liquefied natural gas, but also several alcohols like methanol, ethanol, propanol, and others. Please allow some words on LNG. I do not intend to go very much into technical details, since there are a number of excellent presentations during the conference and there are experts here around. But there is no doubt, and I presume also broad consensus with the conference audience, that LNG as a fuel has a huge potential to achieve significant reductions in air pollutant emissions, in sulfur, nitrogen, particulate matters, and also when it comes to the greenhouse gas footprint. In order to help LNG to a wider market penetration, two things are necessary. First, infrastructure on land and on board, and second, regulation certainty. Let us have a quick look on the first point, the necessity of infrastructure. Well, first of all, the VDR very well welcomes the number of initiatives to foster the LNG bunkering terminals coming up now. There is a European strategy for the so-called Clean Power for Transport Directive, which pushes the EU member states to provide LNG bunkering stations swiftly into the transportation chain, and this by 2025. Across Europe, this clearly would contribute to reliability, especially for the people who are investing very early. However, there's one thing that is very clear from the ship owner's perspective. Without a comprehensive incentive scheme from the federal government for construction and retrofit of LNG-powered ships, it will not be possible to remove the current investment barriers and push for a better market uptake. To be precise, we need help from the government to get this running fast. We have addressed the necessity together with our colleagues from the ports and the shipbuilding associations to the government. Fortunately, there is an excellent cooperation with our ministries, and it is to a great delight that we were able to convince the government on this point. Currently, the government is developing a funding program to boost the market for the use of LNG in shipping, and we hope to receive the exact details hopefully by the end of this year. With this positive outlook, let me turn to my second point, the regulation certainty, when talking about low flash points. Here I am going to highlight some of the outstanding challenges. The regulation side is one of them, but the issues are already widely known. IMO's Safety of Life Convention, SOLAS, requires the 60 degrees Celsius limit for flash point. Liquid alternative fuels like methanol or ethanol do not fulfill this with 52 or 16 degrees Celsius. Fortunately, this has been dealt with in the IMO Code of Safety for Ships Using Gases, the Igf Code. The Igf Code will enter into force next year in 2070 and will be mandatory for all gas and other low flash point fueled ships. It contains detailed requirements for natural gas, but in principle allows also for other fuels. Still in progress is work for alcohol and hydrogen, so they can be incorporated at a later stage. May I summarize, both challenges are under intense work to provide a sustainable basis for ship owners, but we are not there yet. Now let us look from the operator's perspective to the points relevant when it comes to investments and payback times. For ship operators, and the energy content of the fuel they bunker is decisive for the energy efficiency. Depending on the sort of fuel, there are two significant differences which we have to take into consideration. Giving the heating value of marine diesel or residual fuel oil, which is about 42 megajoule per kilogram, LNG climbs a little bit higher with 50 megajoule, but methanol, in contrast, drops down to around 20 megajoule. However, that would not automatically mean that LNG is, then an example, much better. Energy density is another factor in correlation with the heating value to look at. Taking residual fuel as reference, LNG, methanol, ethanol are circling around 0.5 of it, meaning the fuel storage space for tanks have to double. This influences the ship design, as for a given size, the space for commercial payload decreases. If it would be a pressurized tank arrangement, that would count even more. Some fuels are strongly corrosive, so that the materials not only for the tank, but for the piping, the seals and other elements need to be compatible, which might heavily drive the ship cost. Some are rather toxic, like methanol, which is in principle no problem, but would require additional consideration in order to prevent inhalation or contact of crew members. There are extensive experiences in shipping with the safety regulation. We as Hartmann Shipping have made already a number of experience with our gas tankers, and we have just taken over from a Chinese dockyard a 36K gas tanker together with DNVGL, and this ship has, besides its different structure, also an ethane-fueled main engine, the first one in the world. And we will have, together with DNVGL, a number of experiences on this system. And when we have more information on that, I guess you will be much interested, and I will be prepared to tell you how that worked. At this moment, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you for your attention, and I wish you all a successful conference and a nice time in Hamburg. Thank you very much.